Hi, welcome to the shop. Today's video is the first of two parts on building a large table for a commercial application, and it's a trestle table with a kind of unique end that I struggled to figure out how to actually build. So stick around and check it out. Oh, wow, it's getting cold out there. So this project is an accounting firm got hold of me and wanted me to build a community table for their lunchroom. Now I'd like to say that that accounting firm picked me because of my superior craftsmanship and my attention to detail. But honestly, I'm a retired partner from that firm, and I think they just like the idea of me building a table. So I'm going to build a 10-foot long table out of solid cherry with the company logo embedded in the middle. For right now, I'm going to cut this lumber to length. I'm going to sticker it over in the corner for a couple days so it can acclimate to the shop, and then I'll get it milled up and start the project.
Now, while that lumber acclimates, I'll give you an idea of the design of the table. So this is a SketchUp drawing I did. You can see there's two kind of trestle pieces at the end. And if we move this tabletop up a little bit, you can see how that's constructed with like a coopered end. The whole base is really only 5 pieces.
So this lumber's been stacked here for several days, allowing it to acclimate to the workshop. And what I mean by that is I want the moisture content in the lumber to be stabilized with the humidity in the shop. Now that hopefully will prevent the wood from doing anything weird as I mill it up. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the base. So I'm going to take the 4/4 lumber, I'm going to cut it into 5-foot pieces so it'll be a little easier to handle, and then mill that up and get ready to make the base.
So we're starting by getting the pieces cut up to start milling. Here's another look at that base. You can see how that coopered end is. So we'll stack up the boards that we need. Going to joint the edge and the face, then plane the other side. Now we're going to make these coopered end pieces. So it's going to be cut at a 10-degree angle, and we're going back and forth, just flipping them over. And then once we get them stacked up, you can see they're kind of a trapezoid shape, and you can see from this drawing, this is a top shot of what that coopered end is going to look like. So now we're going to cut them off to end length. I'm going to run the plane across the sides where they're going to be jointed together, just to give it a good surface. And then we're going to route a groove in each edge for that spline. And the small piece with the magnet on the end of it, that is an offcut that's kind of helping hold that on that 10-degree angle. And you can see that I had to set the dado blade a little wide, so there was just a hair of a piece of wood left in the center.
Hey, if you like this video, or if you're an employee of YHP, don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and comment on this video. We appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Now comes that glue up. This is a very stressful process because there's so many pieces that need to be glued together. My wife Monica helped me get them all glued up. And you can see there on the left that little tray. That's set so that the outside angle is going to be set at the 8 inches that I want that to be, which is kind of a critical dimension to make these things the right size. So I'm going to put a little bit of tape on them to hold them in place, and then I'll put a band clamp on them. Some of that glue wiped off, and we'll let that dry for about 90 minutes.
So no doubt the end caps for the legs were my most feared part of this project. I was dreading this because I really wasn't sure how to glue up 9 pieces at 20-degree angles with a spline. I have 4 of them to make. The first one did not go real well. I had some gaps in it. It was a little bit difficult to get it clamped up. And then I figured out what the problem was, where my splines were just a little thick and just a little bit wide. I mean, they fit in a dry mock-up, but once I put the glue on them and tried to get them together, I had an awful time getting them together. I ended up with one or two pretty small cracks, or not cracks, but openings that I'll have to putty, but not perfect. But the second round with these thinned up a little bit and just brought down a little bit narrow with the drum sander, I was able to get this put together with really the tape was able to hold it together, and put some band clamps on it to kind of tighten it up. I don't see any gaps. I think we're going to be just fine with this one. So I've got one more to make, and then I've got the lumber plane up for the panels. So the panels are going to be next. I'll get those glued up.
The first thing I wanted to do was make sure that all the grains looked good on these end panels, because those were going to show a lot. So grain selection is really important. Once I decided on how I wanted them to lay out, I put a witness mark on it so that I could set them back in the same order. And then on the ends of them, I was marking, because I'm going to use a spline just like I did on the curved parts to join those together. And here I'm cutting that spline. You can see in the background my end pieces, and that fence is still at the same place it was when I cut out those end pieces. Okay, going to again joint these with the plane to get them so they'll match up good. I will use the length of that joiner plane to kind of make sure that edge is perfectly straight. And then we'll get it marked out for dominoes. I'm using dominoes here to join these. Frankly, it probably doesn't need anything, but I just wanted something to hold those together. Could have used dowels, could have used splines like I did on the curved part. But I have a domino joiner and I'm going to use it. Simply cut the slots in the pieces and then use the dominoes to mount them together. Now we'll get this thing glued up. So I spread the glue, dipping each of those dominoes in the glue and then inserting them into the hole. So glue on the other side. So the glue's on both sides of those dominoes. And then it's just a matter of repeating that process for all the rest of those. Then get it clamped up. Make sure she lays flat and all the ends line up. And get the excess glue off. Now going back to the end pieces, here I'm scraping the excess glue out of the inside of that curve. Then using a spoke shave to kind of take the corners off, trying to round that down. It's kind of a long process of a lot of different tools. Used a sander as well. Then I kind of finalized on just a block planer and still using a spoke shave in some places. And that little Veritas clamp is kind of like a tail clamp that worked really well. Now I apologize, I forgot to videotape putting the panels and all together, but you can see it's a pretty straightforward process with the band clamp and gluing it up. But once I did, I had to trim off those end pieces that were a little bit different lengths. Then next I'll get started on the stretcher between the two trestles. They're going to be held to the trestles with these knockdown fasteners, or sometimes called, I think, a cross bolt. I've also got smaller ones that I'm going to be using to the two stretchers that are going to actually, or the skirt that's going to hold the top onto the base. I'm just drawing that cross hole where the nut's going to set. And I made sort of a storyboard off of a cutoff of the skirt so that I can mark where those holes need to go. Then I'll drill for the bolts in the trestle itself. Make sure that's straight and aligned. And then I'll give it a dry assembly. And that's what the base is going to look like. Drilling a whole lot of pocket screws in that skirting on the inside. And that's where I'm going to screw the top onto the bottom. Probably didn't need as many as I used, but I wanted to make sure that top didn't come off. Then it's a matter of getting it all sanded up and ready for stain, and then the next step. Now in part 2, we'll be dealing with how to joint 10-foot long boards, staining, and embedding the company logo with using my Shaper Origin. Thanks for stopping by.